40 pounds.
How heavy? Everybody pass it around real quick. Pass it around.
7.
You don't know how heavy that is. Pass it around.
Jillian. It's a Jillian.
It's heavy. It's extremely heavy.
Yeah, I'd say.
7 pounds, 7.5 pounds per gallon.
Okay. You're going to all have to come close and look at this. You got 45 pounds, right? How much water does that look like in the boat? Looks like nothing. Nothing, right?
Yeah.
If you're in
Seat
6, do you even see anything?
Nope.
No. That looks like nothing, no water in the boat, right? But it's 50 degrees over here. You get 2 of these. And you're carrying 100 pounds right there. That's an extra body. So, you know, when you come into harbors, especially like this harbor or wherever you're going, and you have this much water, and all of a sudden a boat just takes off, it's probably because they bailed before. You know what I mean? And they're not pulling 100 pounds through the whole entire harbor. So, number 3 and 4 have to let the steersman know what's going on in the boat. You know? What happens when you get this kind of water in your boat? And you know, here we have bailers. You're allowed to hook up electric bailers, but they malfunction all the time, and the steersman doesn't know it. But you need to let people know what happens when you get this kind of water in. Now the rough seas, the water, 100 pounds of water sloshes onto this side of the boat when the Ami gets high on a wave. What happens? Yes, it causes the boat to be very tippy. So then all of a sudden now it's causing the boat to be very tippy because the water's sloshing around, and all of a sudden you're kind of missing strokes because you know how when it's really tippy you end up missing strokes because you're, you know, trying to paddle like you're on the right hand side but you're really leaning way left. So these are all little tiny mistakes, you know, that, you know, you're getting a half a stroke instead of a full stroke. Trying to gain my thought of where I'm at. Okay, so it's very crucial, and what I see a lot happening is everybody's kind of relying on the steersman and the coach to take charge of their boat. You really, really, really need to be that person who says, okay, where's my extra paddle? Do all you guys, when you go to a race, does anybody check out the boat and see what's happening with your boat?
Before the race?
It's basically the steersman does it, not everybody else. So you guys need to take charge and take control of your boat in your race and really have a hand and know what's going on. Last week in Marina Del Rey, a couple of the girls in the offshore team were like, I don't know what was wrong. What was wrong? You saw what was wrong with us? Well, they had their yakuts on backwards. Nobody noticed. So these are things, you know, before a race, really check out because that can make or break your races for you. But anyway, so these are just little things that I think people don't think about of what's happening. So if you're in 3 and 4, and look at 1, no water, look at 6 and 5, still no water. So you have to be smart paddlers. Everybody has to, you know, speak up. If you see a lot of water in your boat, say, we need to bail. We got a lot of water in here. You know, this is right now, you hop in there. Now you probably have a little bit. Garlic Charlotte, hop in. 100 pounds, this is just up to her, barely covering her feet, you know. Yeah. So, you know, you can see that if it's just up to here on your foot, you should say something. Don't let it go, okay? Okay, so that's it on that. We have a little bailer to bail the water out. You can turn it off while we're bailing. So, yeah. So just, you know, little, if everybody does it. Okay, so let's just talk about the stroke real quick. Oh, there we go. The base of the paddle's right here. have my hand, one hand width down, and I'm going to put my hand up here, and I always put a piece of tape with a little string right there so I can feel it. Because the tendency a lot of people have is to paddle up here, and they slide up and down. So as long as I have a reference of where I think my hand should be, I do that. And have a little piece of string in it. And that is good if I am out there with you guys and I say lower your bottom hand or raise your bottom hand, you may consider, and I have some string and tape, if anybody wants to do it today, up here, because it just gives you a reference, you know, especially when you're switching over a lot, because that whole thing feels the same, so I like to do that. 2, okay, so the paddle is designed with an angle, right? The whole idea of this stroke is you're going to put the paddle in the water, straight up and down, that's where it's most effective, not to the side, straight up and down. So obviously your top arm has to be on top of your bottom arm. Okay, what's actually happening in the water is, say my shoe's right there, right? I'm going to put my paddle in the water. What's going to happen is everything's going to go this way and come out, right? That shoe would probably stay in the same place. I'm not taking water and pushing it like this. That's mixing air and water. I'm not pushing the shoe that way. Does everybody understand that? So what you're doing is you're anchoring the blade in the water, locking yourself in the canoe, and pulling everything past that blade. There's a lot of people who put the blade in and mix air and water. Push water. Okay. So what you're trying to do is get the blade in at a forward angle, that way. What a lot of people tend to do is come up really nice, and by the time the blade enters the water, it's about right here, and then what's happened? Right? I'm going here, and I'm trying to pull myself past it when I'm already past it. Does that make sense to everybody? So the whole idea is to get it out in front here, lock it in front, and this is the trickiest part of the whole stroke, is right here, getting the blade to go forward in the water. And sometimes it's just by shooting your hands. A lot of people can do it that way. A lot of people talk about the side entrance, and I think the side entrance, does anybody feel themselves doing that? And it's just my opinion only that the side entry thing is good on one man's, good for guys, but for girls, we tend to have to really load the blade up to get it to lock in, to get the acceleration to pull yourself past it. So coming in through the side means you really have to load it in when it's there. So I think it's just a little harder for girls. So I'm not sold on the side entry for women. That's just my opinion, and there's tons of other opinion on that kind of stuff. But for guys and one mans, I think are okay for that. And I think it's good in a one man because you're only pulling around a 20-pound canoe in yourself. In this, you've got 400 pounds. You're lucky to have a 200-pound boat. And you're pulling around at least 600 pounds of body weight to do with it. So I think you need to load it up a little more at the catch. So, you know, the blade goes in here and front, and you're pulling yourself to the blade, right? What I want to talk about is everything else is pretty simple. It's just taking that top arm, it's just going to drive down with the body. So this joint right here, and this joint right here are just stabilizing joints. There shouldn't be any movement. There shouldn't be any type of movement within that joint through the top part of the stroke. I mean, after the stroke, once you're kind of ready to bring the blade out of the water, that's when all your joints can move a little bit, but not dramatically. So you want to pretend you have a cast on from here to here at least. Your top arm is bent to get it out, so your top arm's over your bottom. And all it's going to do is drive from this shoulder, and this is what's moving all your joints around, is pushing down, right? Bottom arm, straight, using the lat, and all this drive from Now let me ask everybody, and do not say the answer. Where do you think the end of the stroke is? Anybody have an idea where's the end of the stroke?
Mid-thigh.
Everybody hear that?
It's at the front.
It's at the front. You start and finish at the front. What happens is as you're paddling, right, and you'll see this, and it's really good as a group, you think mentally about this. You're paddling, your blade comes up, and as soon as your blade starts to come up from this angle out of the water, you should be thinking of moving everything forward. Don't think about this as the end. It's the end of your pool. It's not the end of the stroke. What happens is a lot of people think, oh, recovering rest, and they sit up, they relax, they pause back here, and that stops the forward momentum, right? You just pulled yourself past that blade, you have momentum going, and everything's going forward, and then you stop. What happens to that forward momentum? Stops. So I want everybody to think, you're taking the blade, you're pulling it to yourself, it comes up, out, and everything swings forward. Right? If we do that as a team, you should find your glide a little nicer, a little better. Okay? I think those are all the things I wanted to talk about. Anybody have any questions?
I think we should be talking a little bit more about that because we talk a lot about our recovery and what we're doing and matching our recovery. So
Right.
if we're going to admit philosophically to that recovery being part of the very active stroke and not being the end of the stroke, but the end of the stroke being in front, we have to all commit to it.
Right,
Because that
exactly.
is a very different way of thinking about it. Like you're saying, we've all been committing to taking the blade out is our main focus. Like
Right.
not getting sticky in the back is our
Right.
number one focus, but it's not then connected to the idea of bringing it forward and that being the continuation.
It's not
stroke.
fluid.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And if you have too many people sitting up and doing things at the end of the stroke, you just broken the glide. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? So, you want to get out nice and clean. You don't want it to come back too far because from here you really have nowhere to go with your arms. It's really easy to get out in front. So to get another inch of reach, and then come out somewhere here where you're comfortable. Your arms haven't passed your body or lined up with your body. If your arms line up with your body, it's harder to get the blade out and up. So don't let your arms pass. I don't know if I'm saying this right. This is the first time I've kind of talked about this. You're here, you've come up, and at this point right here, my arms haven't passed the plane of my body. It's easy for me to get it back up. If I've come back too far, now I'm kind of stuck back here, and do I go out to the side? Do I come up? So don't let it swing too far behind you for that fluid motion to get it forward again. Okay, and I'll kind of work with everybody. What I like, there's a whole bunch of different ways to get the blade up and get it forward. But if everybody thinks the front and the back of the stroke are here, then everybody catches up together right here because there is a little different of a swing. I mean, it's nice if everybody can get together, but a lot of times you're always feeling rushed to get in. And if everybody can meet at the front, chances are your timing will get better because everybody knows this is the front. I need to come out and meet right here and then go in and drop in together. Instead of a few people back here rushing to get up because they've gone past their body and they're like really rushing to get in. They're late or people are getting up here they're not coming out, they're just swinging up and they're getting in real early. So hopefully this will help out with a little bit of time.
Do you have an idea of how far off the water you want our blade in the front of the stroke? Bring it up front.
Well, most people who bring it up really high tend to come down and shorten their actual main stroke. If you come up and get it out here, and it's through the reach here, so you're going to find yourself with a little bend, a little hinge, this motion right here, and rotation, right? I mean, ideally, in an ideal word, you want to come here and go here and keep the blade as straight as possible. But it's really hard on your back, and it's really hard. So the rotation is it's a little stronger movement. So you're going to create a little hinge, forward, a little rotation, get the blade in the water by either dropping that bottom shoulder and dropping the top shoulder, and then the whole idea is to unhinge first, and this is a whole sequence, and this is the hardest thing. I'm still working on this, the sequencing of how to do stuff. Is you're here, you're going to unhinge to keep that blade at a good angle, that straight up and down angle, and then roll out of it, or use your rotation. Hinge, and then out. And then swing forward. Hinge, out. Okay, that's like way above my level. Does anybody have any questions? Did I explain that? Okay.
So I have not a technique specific question, but do you find, since obviously you've been in some really strong competitive crews,
Right.
that when those crews are running at their best, that they are exerting more effort or just more efficient effort? In other words, like when I've been in races that have done really well, it's always that moment where you're like, this is so easy. How can we be doing so well?
Yeah.
Do you find that that's a common thing, or is it just
I find it's
crew?
more common with a group of girls who are very happy. Who are very happy. I find there are boats you get in, and there's a magic in the boat of everybody being very appreciative to be in that boat. They want to pull really hard for the other person. It's not just about me. It's about making the experience better for the other person. And there's a good cohesive, feeling in the boat. The minute you get some negativity in the boat, then you don't feel good. I don't know. But whenever the boat has felt really well, it's because everybody in the boat wants to do it for that other person.
So let me ask you this. So when you're in a crew that for whatever reason suddenly does not feel like it's working well,
Right.
do you generally opt to have everyone let off and regroup? Or I guess what I'm getting at is I think a lot of times we have a tendency to, it doesn't feel good, let's just all start to muscle.
Yeah. No. Okay. I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but
Yeah.
my philosophy is a lot of times in a race, you're in a race, there's people way out in front of you, people way out back of you, and you're not doing anything. Nothing's going right. These guys aren't catching you guys. You're not catching them. You're just kind of in la la land, like on a death march into the finish, right? At that point, I like to change things up. I'll switch 1 and 2. You know what I mean? We'll do something to change it up because, what's going to happen? They're going to catch you. You're going to catch them. I tend to think, let's gamble, if I'm in front, there's no gambling. I'm covering everything. You know what I mean? But when you're in that la-la land, and nothing's working and things, you can be in that la-la land and be having fun, and it's not a big deal. Like you can be talking to each other and, playing games with your crew and, keeping their mind focused in at the task. But if you're struggling through it, heck, why not? What's the difference going to happen if you change the stroke around? It just changes things up and I'm in a new seat. It's a new race. Or, you just change something up.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Right. Good.
I find, yeah.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, I find if I'm ahead, I cover. If I'm behind, I gamble. Because I'm just going to come in behind. Yeah. So, let's go, Robert.
I suffer with not pumping.
Yes.
And I see other people do it a lot. And then at the same time, I see six to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a difference between this and this. If you shoot your butt backwards, you can see, one man. Who is a one man? I'm going to do this real quick.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Hey, really quick. Let's just grab a one man.
Go get Benny's.
Grab that one man. Just bring it right here.
It's Will.
One I just need a
Take that one. Heather. Heather, take that one.
Is it warm?
Did you just see? I need to so too.
I was going to go on the other side of the thing.
I was like, it was, I was like, would it be wrong to be standing on the floor?
I'm gonna get up.
Did they just, you just recorded our key conversation, right?
No, but.
Okay, so if I'm in a one-man and I do this, what's going on with the boat?
It's gone backwards.
I'm reaching forward, right? But I'm shooting my butt back. Same thing in a six-man. It doesn't affect the six-man as much as a one-man, but you're still affecting the boat. And this is all hinging, right? So now if I add a little rotation to the hinge, you see it doesn't do it as much, right? But if your stroke is all hinge, that's what's happening. And you can see it really well in a boat like this. In a six-man, you can't see it. You don't feel it. You don't see it. So that's why a lot of people do that. You know, you need to hinge slightly, but more with the rotation to lose that effect of doing this, right? Because I can just go backwards all day long doing this. At that point, I'd be a rower.
So why is it different if you're leaning backwards? You're just putting the force forward?
Well, go ahead, sit there and do it. Her knees are going to be in her chest. Just.
But you were saying going this way?
Yeah. No. Just lean forward. Go forward. Now, go forward with just a rotation. Hang on. Now you're shooting your butt back. Now, pitch your body force, and then kind of stay in that pitch. Not as much.
Well, you've got her on the one man. Can you show us the tip about steering? Because a lot of these folks
In one man?
yeah,
There's no tips of steering. You just got to use your feet.
okay.
When's it a different stroke? No, if you have, if you're in a one man and you're in a one man that has no rudder, then there's steering. Right? But if you have, you just got to look up.
You just pedal, like, you tend to go one direction a little bit when you're riding on one side.
Yeah,
How do you correct what's happening?
The things that are going to affect that are wind and water. Wind and water are going to always affect how your boat is moving through the water. But with those, it's so easy because you just pick a point, get your foot adjusted right, and paddle to it. But you got to look up. Most people on a one man look down the whole time, like, oh.
Wow, buoy.
Yeah.
Are we, this is Lawrence's
Oh.
boat. Can I give the boat
Yeah.
back?
But I just want to show you that, sit up, that it affects the one man so much. You don't feel it so much. You got to think of getting that momentum. And these are all minor little things that eat away at your race over time, In a sprint, you don't see it because you're coming in, it's a quick race, but the longer the race is, those are those little minute things that eat at you. And if you pay attention to these little details, you'll go farther, faster. Not faster, because no one's going faster, but go slower.
So, Mindy, if you're sitting in six and you're steering, and you're not paddling,
Yeah, I rock
and
forward.
you do a little bit of a rock. Okay, just
Keep that momentum. So you're not, but
be
you're straight.
careful not to pump
Yeah.
your butt.
Yeah, I'm not like Rocky like crazy.
Because I see it all the time, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
So one of the things that
What do I do?
Okay, that's a hard one because you gotta. What you're trying to do is lock that blade in. Lock it in so there's no slippage and you're not just pushing water around and I'm trying to think of a way to demonstrate this a little better. Okay. Let's go with it. And all steersmen pretty much know this, right? I can be here, and see I'm just pushing water, but I can lock it here and pull myself through it. Lock it and almost pull myself. So the same thing, you got to get it in, lock it, and get pressure on it to pull yourself past it. So that's using what you're trying to do is get everything to fire together. Get that top arm, which is not your top arm, this back here, and this here, and you're here. Remember, this is not a moving joint. Those are not moving joints. This is not really a moving joint. This, right? So everything needs to be locked, and it's all firing together. Instead of, there's people who paddle like this, all different ways, but they're moving everything, or they're not firing together, not using their full potential. I mean, you've got so much potential, so much you can use, but with breaking, think about fashion and function, right? You're wearing high heels for the fashion of it, but how long can you really wear those high heels, right? You use function, you wear a pair of sneakers. How long can you wear a pair of sneakers? So all this stuff that you pick up because it's kind of fashionable and it's kind of stylish, you know, you got the whoopee kind of you know, that's the difference. You know, they look kind of cool and pretty and like they're doing stuff, but they're not really using the function part of how paddle through the water. Yeah.
So
you want to be sneakers.
doesn't that actually involve, for novices especially, some patience with the
Yeah.
stroke? And I'm still learning it, and I got a special talking to on Wednesday, you know, because I am beating in the entry,
Right.
and it takes this second of patience to get the bite.
Your hands have to be patient. Your
And-
hands are controlling everything through the stroke. So your hands have to be the patient one in putting it in.
Right.
And getting it in.
And I think when the novices went out with us last weekend, I heard a lot of them say, oh my gosh, what a difference. You guys have much more recovery. We were able to load up. So I think that's what I'm trying to think of, and I will have to think of it today because, like I said, on Wednesday night I wasn't doing it.
That's good about it. And I've been watching a lot of the unlimited boats coming through and what's happening with the unlimited boats, and it looks like there's not a lot of patience in the unlimited boats because it seems to me like the stroke rate needs to be a little higher, a little quicker. It's all up in front instead of these heavier boats where you need to really kind of lock it in. So I'm still kind of learning that. Once I get in one of those, I'll be able to figure it out.
So how do you use your legs and your hips primarily while you're paddling?
Okay, very good question. So you have, and in the unlimited now, they have braces, so it's even easier. I would say you want, instead of your hips being square in the boat, you want it this way. You want to keep a little pressure off this hip. Your back, you know, if I'm on this side, I'm going to keep a little pressure off this hip, but I'm going to put pressure over on this side for the rotation. And what you're going to do is once your blade's in there, right, you're going to push off your leg. It's going to start with the, I don't know if you can all see it because I'm in a boat, right?
Both the sheets are on the seat.
This one back here might be a little lifted. Less pressure on it. But you don't want to put pressure on the canoe. You don't want to lean to the canoe. You want the pressure's, you know, your weight and everything's out on the blade. And all you're doing is, it's hard to explain when I'm sitting in here. So your hips are going this way. there's a lot of people that twist just here. There's a lot of people that twist just right at the waist. But the guys who do it the best twist at the hips. This and here. This and here. Can everybody see that? The rotation here. So it's here, here. And you're using your leg to push off. You're here. If I just use my leg, I come back that much, right? And then everything else. A lot of people don't use this. A lot of people just use a rotation in their shoulders and that's it.
Because then it goes back to what you were saying, you're not firing everything
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
You're not doing it one fluid movement.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
want your
firing.
whole skeleton to be like solid and moving with your bigger muscles, not your small ones. You know, everything will be fired together. That's when you're the strongest. You give yourself passion out. Anything else? Yeah.
I notice in the back end, and I don't know if other steers people notice it, but there's a lot of, and I know a lot of it comes with the newer people as well learning, but a lot of butt motion when they're switching sides. There's got to be you learn how to switch sides. It's almost like you kind of push up a little bit on your feet as you're going over so that you're not doing this, because when this happens, the boat's going up and down and up and down. You do it on the wrong side, the boat goes right over. So it's a learning process that it just comes natural. I think veterans are going to say, I don't do that. No, you don't, because you learn to just kind of scooch it over without making any motion. But it all goes back to that same going backwards in a canoe. When you're doing that, you're going up and down and backwards at the same time. So you look like a floppy little thing
And
in
it's
the
most
water.
prevalent in 3 and 4 because this is like
Yes, exactly. And I understand that some of you, Serene, Jillian, you only take up a fourth of a seat. So you do have to kind of scooch over. I understand that, but there's a way to kind of learn how to do it, to shift the cheeks over without bumping the boat. And I think anybody else who's steering it.
Well, I know for me it helps when I'm doing the actual change if I put my feet together for the switch over, it keeps my body stable, and then I put my foot out for the first.
Yeah, because it gives you that motion. Like so you're up a little bit on your feet as you shift over instead of bumping the butt up and down. Just something to think about. Sorry.
Anybody else?
Just before your butt's so big that it can't really move.
I'm already there, baby. I'm already there.
Now you can sit with each and every one of us.
You guys come back with a boat?
What did you do with that Amish game? I never wanted. That'd be hilarious.
What do you ask Jeff? Is that a training search thing?
Well, we should probably get people in boats. How many total do you